Yeah, you already know. Then at the Roundtable podcast, man, we listened to a few tunes there. We're back again. You know what I'm saying?
Jeep, Jeep. You know what
Yeah,
I
man, we're
mean?
back again, man. We had a few tunes there. We had a few independent artists there. We had Swerve. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Doing
shout
great
out
for
to
the show,
Swerve, man. Shout out to Swerve.
killing it with those
You know what
records.
I
We
mean?
also had Tali Goya from the trap Latino genre. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, man.
And
That's
the
definitely, man.
and the butcher has disappeared. I don't know where the butcher's
I
at,
don't know
but
where he's at. He'll be back. He'll be back. He'll be back.
he
Yo,
probably
what
wanna.
up?
He's probably slicing and dicing his whip.
Slice. Oh man, but no, man. Listen, main topic tonight. Um, police brutality. You know what I'm saying? Again though, it's been an ongoing issue.
Yeah, yeah.
But especially right now, during a time of quarantine, a lot of things has been happening as far as like with the police and civilians. Especially people that look like you and I. Unfortunately. But let's talk about it then. I mean, when Chris Ryder comes in, he could definitely chime in and talk about his
Hmm.
point about police brutality.
Absolutely.
Um,
And listen, man.
yeah, yeah.
It's been an issue countrywide, but mostly in obviously populated cities where we're not the minorities. You know what I mean? Where we're the majority. For instance, in New York City, like we Latinos and blacks, we're the majority. We make up more population wise than they do, and it's just in New York, for instance, there's been a couple of instances
Mhm.
the last couple of weeks where the cops have overreacted and they've hurt civilians doing incredible like aggressive things for no reason.
Right,
They've
right.
taken the social distancing um, issue, which is not really a law yet. It's not a law. They've taken a social distancing issue and they've just gone like rogue with it, like insane. Like there was this one cop. There was a group of cops. I don't know if you know that this particular incident that I'm speaking of. It was like it went viral. There was this one cop. It's four of them. They just pulled over. There was this guy sitting in front of a store. He was there like talking to this girl, and then all of a sudden they hemmed him up because he wasn't like
That's what happened in Lower East Side.
Lower
That
East Side. Yeah, he wasn't like too close to the person. He was too close to the person, and they got into a little shoving match, and it was like the cop like he went ballistic. He went after another guy who had nothing to do with it. Just punched him in the face, knocked him out, and it's like man, these cops that end up having those aggressive situations, they have a history. They have a history
yeah.
of brutality. When they looked into it, Francisco Garcia, which is the name of the officer,
Hmm.
he had a history of a lot of like
Yeah, I
cases
looked at.
against him, a lot of
Hmm.
settlements too that the city paid out because
City
of
had to
him.
pay out. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
and the funny thing is, the cops want to like treat we're at the end of the day, we're the ones that pay their salaries. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
So
any public employee is paid by tax
yeah,
dollars,
and guess who got some pain that settlement? It's our money. So
tax dollars. Yeah,
you're beating us. So that's I mean, at the end of the day, maybe that's the reason why they don't care. Because you know what? They're paying
because
for
they
our
feel that they're gonna be
salary.
protected by what I'm saying the city. The city's gonna protect them.
Yeah, but the
So,
money's coming out of our taxes. So it's like
I
for
know what
that.
you mean.
So for them, it's like okay, why not fuck them up? They're gonna have to pay for it anyway. But the whole thing is it's been insane, man. But I definitely think police brutality is a big issue. Primarily, the NYPD and the LOP and the LAPD have been historically very abusive and very corrupt. So
Okay, see, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right about that. And when you said the word historically, that's just like bing bing.
yeah,
That's one thing that we really got to understand the history behind this because to really understand, police brutality, you got to really understand the origin of how this even came about. And, when you think about, the way that we live today, it really stems off of the building of this country when it first was established because again though this is basically a psychological issue really in actuality it's really a psychological issue where these people that are put into a position to protect and serve the general population, they're not really conditioned to actually serve the population. They're actually there to protect who put them in that position. So, when you look at it from a historical standpoint, you know, um, you know, it's all a psychological issue. And it really stems from the early economic practice of namely bringing the African slaves,
Yeah.
where, one is more superior than the other. Because really, you think about racism started with classism. Because remember, the first people that were brought here to really work as indigenous servants were poor white people first. It wasn't until afterwards they just started, bringing in Africans and to replace the indigenous servants, so they could actually be slaves forever. Because indigenous servants, the way it worked is basically you would sign a contract with whoever, you know, who owns you for that particular amount of years, and once you're able to commit those years, then you become a free person and also get to actually own some land. So, again, though, we look at the historical standpoint, you get a better understanding of why we are the way we are today. And it really stems from a lot of history, man. Um, you think about what Martin Luther King once said, saying he said one time, racial segregation wasn't a way of life, you know, right after the Civil War. It was a thing that was done strategically by the South to basically divide blacks and whites and keep the wages in control. You know what I'm saying? And this is why, like, even today, we think about immigrants that we feel some threatened by. That's the way they use with the whites and blacks, or the poor whites, where they threaten the poor white people. If you guys don't oblige by these wages, we just get a former Negro slave to replace you, and they'll work for a lot less. So
Yeah.
what poor white people actually had to oblige to that, and deal with that because of that. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy, man. It's crazy when you look at the historical, background of this whole thing. And it's funny how they keep people like this, man. It's crazy, man. And one thing I always say about, economics, man, everything stems down to economics, man. It all boils down to that. They pay people enough to not quit their job, but at the same time, they don't pay you enough so you can come back to work. If
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no,
You know what I'm
I guess
saying?
definitely what you're
But
saying. But yeah, man, I mean, racism definitely part of the whole police brutality issue. Just
yeah,
the
yeah.
history, like the history, most cops were white, and cops, let's say, for instance, in New York City, are mostly of Irish descent.
Yeah. The majority of police officers are white.
Right. I mean, now there's more diversity in the
More diversity, yeah.
more diversity, but they still are large. They're larger in numbers as far as law enforcement goes, as far as Caucasians, right?
Yeah, this is the
But
majority. This is the majority, yeah.
there's no question about it. Cops are learned. They're taught in their training to profile people by the way that they look and the
Oh
way
yeah.
that. So one of the ways that they profile is by
Something
skin
much, yeah.
color, and there's been proof of that through the years that cops are definitely definitely target people of darker complexion than the people who are actually trying to enforce the law, which the cops, right? So there's definitely a history behind that.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
There was this great statistic that I was going to share with you guys real quick about the NYPD brutality joints statistics. I just wanted to share something real quick.
Yeah, you go.
Um, this is just like a little oversight on just like the corruption and mixed conduct of the NYPD. Allegations of mixed conduct and corruption have occurred in the history of New York City Police Department. Over 12,000 cases resulted in lawsuits, mostly nuisance settlements, totaling over 400 million during a 5-year period from
5
2000
years.
during a 5-year period between 2014 from 2014 to 2019. Taxpayers funded 68 68
Percent.
68,688,423 dollars towards the cost of misconduct lawsuits. So out of the 400 million, 68 million came out of our tax paying dollars. All right, a 76 increase over the previous year. So from 2000 so in 2013, right? Whatever the amount was there, 2014, it went up 76% to a 5-year span that ended up $400 million worth of misconduct lawsuits by the NYPD. And falsely convictions and imprisonment was one of the misconduct, the, the
And
larger
unfortunately,
portion, the larger portion of the misconduct lawsuits was falsely conviction, imprisonment, and misconduct, racially profiling people. $400 million. That's a lot of money. And
man,
60,
and within 5 years, you said, right?
yeah, and
Within
60,
5 years.
yeah, and 68 million of that came out of our tax-paying dollars that we paid these victims back. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right,
So
right.
it's like, come on, you gotta be kidding me, bro. Like, we're you know
So
we're there is an attack on the same citizens that actually pay their salary and also pay for their fuck ups, because we're the ones that pay for their fuck ups.
absolutely,
Yeah,
at the
so
general public expense, yeah. I
yeah,
agree, man. That's crazy, though, man. I mean, damn, 5 years, 400 million.
that's crazy. Yeah,
Wow,
and it's
that's
and
wow.
that's the NYPD, only the NYPD. So
Just the
imagine,
NYPD.
imagine of what's happened in other states. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
LAPD is another very corrupt and law enforcement agency that's been known for doing shit. So
That's crazy, man. And you know what? Honestly, man, as you saying that, I mean, I'm just thinking, to my head right now that, again, though, these people are not really held accountable. And I mean, I'm knocking. I mean, to be a police officer and to put your life on the line every single day is something that you definitely got to applaud. Regardless of, because I'm looking at the job description. Yeah, I'm not looking at the individual. I'm not looking at the department. I'm looking at just at the job description
the
as
job
far as what their
description
job exactly what
is to protect and serve, and they do the
right.
complete opposite.
Yeah, and I mean it's unfortunate, and you know what? It's there's police officers that actually are on top of other police officers who they know that who are
Yeah,
corrupt and
yeah,
are doing the wrong thing. You know what I'm saying? So I
yeah,
definitely applaud those officers that definitely trying to make a change in that department, but it's a very corrupt department. You know what I mean? That's
no,
something that's very evident. It's a very
no,
corrupt department,
no.
unfortunately, and something really has to change with that because again, I mean, it's just so evident that people that come from deprived environments are such an easy target. That's why they go to these impoverished environments because they know they're very vulnerable and they know
Absolutely.
they're able to really target them so easily. You know what I'm saying? That's why they're able to, create these quotas because they know they're able to actually have a certain amount of rest, within a certain time period. You know what I'm saying? So it's no coincidence because quotas are real. Quotas are really real. They
Yeah,
actually have a quota set up. You have to have this amount of arrests from this time frame and you
yeah.
have to make sure that you're able to do that.
The commanding officer of that precinct of they say the commanding officer in Harlem, the commanding officer, he's the lead officer. He has an agenda because he's getting, he says, yo, I need a certain amount of rest every month. I need a certain amount of rest every week. And they go out there and sometimes they just go out there to meet their quota instead of really
Yeah,
doing their job. And there's a statistic here from the Daily News that says that only 35% of in New York City, this is an NYPD statistic. 35% of NYPD officers really do their job. The other
35%.
yeah,
Wow,
the other 65% are involved in corruption, misconduct lawsuits, and
that should speak
they usually
volumes. Then
yeah, they get suspended or fired before tenured.
that
It's
should speak.
crazy.
That should speak volumes right
The
now. I
Daily
mean, you're
News
talking
is
about
actual statistic.
65% of police officers don't do their job right. In
That's
other
crazy.
words,
Yeah, basically, most of them don't reach like their seniority level because either they get suspended or they get into a lawsuit of mixed conduct and ended up either getting suspended or fired from the force before they get to a senior um a section of their career, because a
right? To get
career,
promoted, right, right,
an officer's career, like a long career, a great career is like 20 to 25 years, right?
right, right.
So 65% of cops before the 10 years they're done. because of corruption, misconduct, and lawsuits.
And you know what? It can be very tempting. I'm just playing both sides too, because when you put in position to be an authority, like to really enforce things, it could definitely have a way to affect your human psyche, where you start to feel as if you're able to do certain things because that's what you are supposed to be doing. But it's basically the other way around. You're supposed to protect rather than really trying to enforce. You know what I'm saying? Doing things that you know already that you are targeting a certain population. And it's very unfortunate, man. And even like when you see a white police officer who has black friends, but will quickly pull the trigger on someone of someone that looks different from them, and they
Yeah,
would
man.
say, what I'm saying, that they're not racist, but it's because they conditioned, the experience that they've been through, and looking at the history of how this
Yeah.
country came about.
Isn't
It's
that
hard, bro.
isn't that like the worst excuse that a racist person could use, or somebody like, oh, I'm not racist. I got black and Spanish friends. That's like their number one fucking like go to move. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Like
they
when
always
somebody
use that
says
as a
that, you like
scapegoat.
when somebody uses that, I'm like this motherfucker's a racist. Like we just oh, I got black and Latino friends, bro. No man, like if only because if you have black Latino friends, okay, that's fine. But if you in if you have a job where you have to serve the public, and then those same black Latino friends who supposedly you got, you act the same way, you act the opposite towards people that look like them while you on the job, you a fucking racist, bro. I don't give a shit.
You know what's crazy?
The only reason why
Mhm.
you're friends with those black Latinos is because they work for you, they work with you, and you're forced to be their friend. Other than that,
That
you wouldn't be their friend.
that's
So
that
if you go out there to protect and serve, and then you're harming people who look like those friends, your supposedly so-called friends, you're a fucking racist, bro. I don't give a fuck about that shit. There's no way that
yeah,
you're gonna tell me you're not a
yeah.
racist.
I
So
think
Chris,
racism. I can't see you now though. I can't see you on the video.
yeah, I paused it real quick,
Oh gosh, okay.
but I got the audio going so loud, baby. You hear it?
Yeah. But Chris Ryder, man, chime in, bro.
What's up, man? You
What's
guys,
your take?
you came back a little bit late off the break. You was
I know,
out there
right?
slicing and dicing some meat. Oh, you probably want to go. You
Slicing and
probably
dicing you. You keep talking your nonsense.
you
Oh,
yo wait. So
Listen,
wait, you know what it
listen.
was?
You make it nice.
He
You make
probably had a pickup from
pork
one of his
chop, man.
clients. You heard?
Nice little-
He probably went outside real quick. Yo, you
make a
out there?
nice
Yeah,
little pork chop.
The guy's like,
oh
yo, I'm
man.
pulling
I'm gonna
up.
start calling you little pork chop Nelson. You know.
Like, yo, I'm pulling up, Chris. I got those 5 pounds. You got those 5 pounds that I ordered from you earlier, and they came outside,
Yo, man, you
served
guys are
that
too
shit.
much right now, man.
He did a hand sale of fucking meat.
Okay.
And the hand sale, you said?
I tend to look at both sides of things, and you gave a great statistic about like the 65%, how like cops they usually flame out after 10 years.
That's a lot.
You ever think about the mental aspect of the job that would drive somebody to do the things that they do? Because we're talking from the outside. We're not actual cops. We're not talking from actual experience. So I'm not making excuses. I'm not saying that anything done out of racism is right or wrong. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that do you ever truly think about the mental aspect of things? Because you could walk into a situation as a bright-eyed rookie saying, I want to save the world. And then you quickly believe that in order to do some good, you got to really do some bad. And then eventually you get to the point where you can't differentiate between the two. And then you just start doing shit you're not supposed to.
No, you get caught up. You're right about that. But that's what I said earlier. I said that it could
some people have the mental capacity to overcome it and continue doing the right thing, like those 35%. But I think that those 65% are under immense pressure because you got to remember, it's like you're seeing the worst of the worst every single day. I don't know if you guys saw in the daily news that there was this young man who was brutally butchered, like not too far away from you, Jay. I think he's like 4 blocks away from you. And
Wow.
they found, and just imagine you being a beat cop, and you walking into an apartment and you're seeing a man's fucking inside spilled out, his fucking
No,
test,
it could it could be definitely traumatizing. Yeah, for
fucking
sure.
like decapitated. You know, it's like that
Mhm.
shit fucks with your psyche.
It
So
does.
I
I
think
mean, it fucks with your psyche when you see animals butchered at work, right?
that's different. They're dead already. It's a difference.
Yeah, like you always trying to
Yo,
set you up
do
already.
you ever feel any connection to a dead body? It's a dead body. There's nothing there anymore. But the act of actually taking somebody's life or seeing somebody like dead right then and there is different. And even
No,
like butchers who work in slaughterhouses, they're not all there in the head. They're taking animals' lives and slaughtering animals all day. That shit ain't easy to do.
Wow.
You know,
Nah.
but what I'm
definitely.
saying is that I tend to look at things from both perspectives, and it's like sometimes it might not be that those cops are bad. They just seen some shit that caused they mental
Yeah.
capacity to get fucked
I
up.
I blame the system in part. I'll say the combination of both. In part, I blame the system because I believe there should be the fact that Chris Ryder said that that's absolutely 100% the truth. These cops on a day-to-day basis, they get to see gruesome stuff, man. You know what I mean?
Worst
Like
humanity, the
they're
worst.
seeing stuff, yeah. So if cops go through a training, right? They go to the academy for whatever amount of time they're in there. They graduate, then they become beat cops. They get assigned to a precinct, and you know, depending on the type of arrest that they make, the type of merits that they get, they move up in the ranks, and then they got to take tests to become a higher up in their career. But
Right.
they never get psychologically evaluated. They never get psychologically evaluate. Ah, damn.
Value.
Evaluated.
Yeah, they don't get a
Evaluate.
psychological evaluation after all
Right.
that. Once they come
Right.
once they come out of the academy, they go into they get or they go to the force. They start seeing crazy shit. 2 or 3
I
years
agree.
later,
I agree.
there should be a system where a cop should go through a psychological evaluation at least once a year.
And more intense too, though. Like, it has to be more intense. I mean, I'm not sure how it is. Obviously,
Yeah, they have to.
just said,
So let me throw a number at you, right? So let's say you're a beat cop. Let's say you see 10 citizens a day. You interact with 10 citizens a day. Let's say 5 out of the 10 citizens, or you even now, let's say you're a beat cop right now and you gotta enforce a social distancing. So let's say you go to one person and you say, listen, you guys gotta separate, you're too close. Okay, no problem. The first 5 people. The sixth person gives you a little bit more of an attitude. You're right, because I work in the retail business. Nelson works in the retail business. We deal with people all the time, so it's always energy. So if a person is giving you that negative energy, then you're gonna be negative. So to me, sometimes I feel like a lot of interactions between cops and citizens is based on energy. So if I'm coming up to you and you automatically defensive, I'm gonna get defensive. And then if I come to you defensive, you're gonna get defensive.
Yeah.
And then instead of like maintaining a positive energy, it creates a situation where it shouldn't have been. And then how would you feel if 5 or 6 people at a day say, yo, suck my dick. Fuck out of here, you pig ass bitch. Like that shit eventually you're gonna get pissed off. Oh, I'm a fucking bitch. I'm a pig. Then I'm gonna slam you on the floor because I got the authority to do so. You gotta think about.
Well, you basically got a license. You got a license to kill, basically, when you're a
But
cop.
you do, but at the same time, it's like you gotta think about like the psychiatric mentality of people. It's like you're dealing with personalities every day. And for you to maintain a positive outlook every single time, especially when you're getting static all day, it's virtually impossible to maintain a positive attitude. It's impossible.
That's what I'm trying to say. That there should be. They shouldn't only cops shouldn't just get trained when they first enter the force. They should go through a training every year so they can learn how to cope with these things. Because
right, and
sometimes
how to handle
situations,
like
yeah. Because sometimes, you're right. You're dealing with, especially in New York City, the NYPD has to deal with like 9 million citizens, bro. You know what I mean? Like 9 million people reside here. But the whole thing is like the cops sometimes come off with the bad energy.
Yeah, and
They
that's
dealt
do.
because they dealt with an asshole the day before, and now they feel like, yesterday was a bad day, so today
Sometimes
I'm gonna
it's
make
like
it a bad day.
All right, I'm gonna give you an example. Yesterday, I went to go see my mom, and I'm in the projects, and there was like 3 or 4 dudes in the corner. They were too close, so I see the cop car pull up. Basically, I wasn't even next to them, and I felt the energy from the dudes. Like they already got defensive, like posted up, like "What's up?" Like "Fuck you, why are you bothering us?" And then the cops right there are just doing their job. So now automatically those dudes in the corner are aggressive. You don't know what type of cops is in the car. So now the cops already assuming that this is going to be a problem. So if I come on my car positive, you know, these guys are going to jump all over me. So I got to be a dick in the outset. That's so I get that shit too, because customers come, they be dickheads, and I just be on some like, what do you want? Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you want to be a dick, be a dick. I'm gonna be a dick back. But there's customers that come in that are very nice, and my energy's changed. That's why I am such a big believer in energy. I feel like if you positive and you come at somebody with a positive attitude, that you kill them, that kill them with kindness. That shit is a real thing.
It is a real thing.
You fight fire with fire, you're gonna get fucking smoke.
You're right, it does, but like
And
those are separate, isolated incidents that you're talking about. In a general aspect, the statistics don't lie, bro. There's definitely a disconnect. A disconnect between the citizens, not all citizens, Black and Latino citizens and cops, because of the historic nature of cops being racially profiling people and just fucking wrongfully incriminating you just because of the skin color that you carry.
And
right.
that's
what I mean?
Like energy comes in, because I've been next to cops white as hell in the hood that were really good people, that were real positive. And then I've been around cops, Black, white, Hispanic, whatever.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's an individual aspect of the spectrum.
Right, but no, saying like in general.
In general, like I've had real good situations with officers, and I've had my instances where I haven't had a good situation with officers. But overall, I would say I haven't had a really rough time in that sense. I've had a dick or two. Not a dick officer. Pause that. A dick officer here or there. I said a dick or two. I just called myself.
Wait, what are you thinking about that?
What I said, I've had an asshole cop. I've had an asshole cop here and there, but in the general aspect, I really haven't had like a crazy like situation where I get like ousted by a cop. But we're talking about like in a general aspect, cops generally do not have good ties with people of color or Latinos, because most cops are of white descent. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? And that's traditionally that's something that's been in the history of the books. You can't argue that. Now that there are some good cops out there, absolutely, there's definitely a lot of good cops.
Oh, yeah,
but when the majority of them statistically are doing fucked up shit, that there's a problem. There definitely is a problem. And I think the problem lies in where they're only getting the proper training at the beginning of their career, and not every little step of the way. If an officer every year gets evaluated or gets assessed, okay, you've been in the field, you saw 3 murders this year, you see a body chopped up, you've been through some shit. Let's see how you're doing psychologically. Are you fit to be on the field? It will help. It will help.
You got a point. You do got a point.
It will.
Absolutely.
But when you let a cop go in for 10 years watching crazy shit happen, his mind is fucked up that he doesn't believe in nothing anymore. Like his humanity, he doesn't believe in humanity. He doesn't believe in nobody. He already has a fucked up mind. You know what I mean? Because he hasn't been psychological. He hasn't vented that out. And you know what happens? You know how they vent it out? When they fucking emptied out a clip on you with 3 other cops for one dude that wasn't even armed. When they empty out a clip
That
Four
shit
cops,
always to me was
four
different.
cops empty
Like,
out a
why
clip and reload
only
on one
5 cops
person.
for one dude?
That was
Listen,
there was an
listen.
intent. Yeah.
When four cops empty out a full clip and reload and empty out the reload clip on one person who wasn't unarmed, there's definitely a problem, bro. That's the way that they vent out, by using brutality. They
And when
use excessive force. That's how they vent out. Somebody who's been on the force 10 years is not playing games. They seen shit happen. They seen people get caught up and shot up and cut and basically decapitated. So his mind is already, yo, fuck that. It's my life versus that person's life, because they haven't been psychologically evaluated.
And but play both sides too, though, because like Chris Ryder, you were talking about how they'll approach someone and they'll just give them a back talk, but also take into consideration what that person been through, of that person being so oppressed all their life.
Yeah,
They sick of this already. So me as a professional coming to somebody, I got to come with that expectation that this person is very vulnerable.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
And it takes that understanding. It's like you said, that person might have had that same prejudices. He's already defensive. That cop is being a defensive, and instead of them two just taking a moment to just relax, take it easy, maybe that situation will change.
Yeah, but the person who wants to be in charge of that situation, Chris, sorry to interrupt you, is the person wearing the badge and the shield, because that person is a qualified professional that needs to learn how to assess a situation rather than act upon it. You know what I mean?
But like I said, it's all about energy. I don't know if you guys ever seen this movie. It's from Denzel Washington's son, John
Washington.
It's called Monsters and Men. You guys seen it?
Never seen that.
I haven't watched that.
Monsters and Men. You guys got to see that movie. Okay. It's like, and it shows like 3 different aspects of discrimination. You got a kid who's, it's like they take the Eric Garner situation and they like use that, and then the kid who took the video of the Eric Garner situation, he gets arrested for some other bullshit. And then it tells the story of a Latino kid. Then it tells the story of a black cop in the NYPD. And then it tells the story of a black up and coming activist who joins in the Black Lives Movement. It's a really good movie. And it just shows so many different aspects of every situation. And the movie's called Monsters and Men.
Okay, so you guys, there's different types of police brutality according to the Webster dictionary, right? So let's go through them real quick, guys, so we can give our listeners a little bit. Types of what are the different types of police brutality? We have types of misconduct include coerce, false confessions, intimidation, false arrest, false imprisonment, falsification of evidence, which they're known to do a lot. Spoiling of evidence, police perjury, witness tampering, police brutality in general, corruption, racial profiling, unwarranted surveillance, unwarranted searches, unwarranted seizures of property. And the list goes on and on. But those are like the main types of police brutality. The use of excessive force and police brutality. The difference between reasonable force and excessive force, which is excessive force is what leads to police brutality, correct? So the difference between reasonable force, which is an officer of the law actually having all the rights to act upon a situation, that's reasonable force, right?
Like their life is threatened and they have to
or
take action.
Or you ate a red light while you was driving, now they got to pull you over. You see what I'm saying? Like that, you know what I'm saying? Oh, just because you whistled at the girl who passed by you, it doesn't give him a right to pull you over. You know what I mean? So stuff like that, like they have to have probable cause of reasonable force. And the difference between reasonable force and excessive force is dependent on the unique circumstances of the situation. Whether the police officer had reason to believe that he or a fellow officer or the member of the public wasn't physical danger, like John Tamar said. That's the difference
Right.
between reasonable force. But what happens is that a cop can make a mistake and think they saw something but not saw it because they're human, right? And then when they go investigate, they find out that damn, I just fucking pulled this guy over for no reason and he's actually innocent. And then the citizen is pissed off because he got pulled over on some bullshit. And now the cop is getting kind of frustrated because he had a long
Yeah.
day, and then excessive force derives from that sometimes, most of the time. So
That's
that's
true. I mean, and also when someone's trying to resist arrest, I can understand how you could justify the excessive force of trying to detain that person and handcuff them. But most of the time, it is where it is excessive force, where it didn't have to go that far, but yet they do that. To even see a police officer, literally punch a teenage kid, just like that, that really, it frightens me to see that happening, regardless of the circumstance of what that kid may say to you. To me, it's just no excuse. And it goes against what you were saying earlier about training, man. I mean, again, a lot has to do with a lot of lack of training, and not to take away anything of what they do, because again, this is a job that they put their life on the line every single day. So you can never take that away. But at the same time, you also have to understand you have a job to fulfill and to commit to that. And you take the oath, like every officer takes the oath that you're going to protect and serve the general public. It's an oath that you take. So you have to abide by those words, But again, though, it's a position that could be, very tempting, because I mean, you're given a position that you have authority. You have authority, and that could be a way where it could be a lot where, yes, like you said earlier about being traumatized, saying certain things that could definitely mess you up, mentally. And then also, it could definitely influence you to do certain things that you're able to get away with, because corruption is a big thing too in every police department. A movie that I watched yesterday was kind of interesting. It's called the 21 Bridges. There was a guy that actually played Black Panther. He was like the lead cop, and his role is basically
all of them were involved. The whole precinct was involved in this shit.
yeah, the whole precinct was involved with corruption.
Insane. You gotta,
and he exposed everybody.
You gotta see that movie, Chris. Right? He exposed him.
Yeah, and that's really real. That's really real. That actually really happens. You know what I'm saying? And just the harsh reality of what it is right now. But I think, again, though, we just can't localize things, just point the finger at one particular individual or even one institution. We got to understand it's a more deeper understanding of this, man. Yeah. Historically speaking, man, this goes out through history, man, from 400 years ago, of why we, have a certain way to approach certain people. Because, again, historically, what I'm saying? And, again, it all stems with economic inequality. When you put people in position where they're very limited in opportunity, they become very vulnerable, where they're going to obviously commit crimes in order to make their ends meet. And this is why they become such an easy target for the law enforcement, because they know already these people are very vulnerable. So we have to change this. We have to change the system, the economic system itself, to really try to change police brutality. And that's my take on it.
According to the Britannica, Britannica, right? It's a very credible source.
Britannica?
Yeah. So according to them, this is a real actual statistic. Police violence is the leading cause of death for young men in the United States. Police violence is police brutality, correct? So over the life course, about 1 in every 1,000 Black men or Latino will be expected to be killed by a police officer. The risk of being killed by 1 in every 1,000 Black men or Latino will be killed by a police officer.
Wow. That speaks volumes.
The risk of being killed by police between the ages of 20 and 35 for men and women of all racial, not all racial, but of particularly Black and Latino ethnic groups, is very high compared to like Caucasian people.
No, definitely. That, you know what? That just shows you, man. Again, though, man, historically,
that's insane. The leading cause of death for young men in the United States is police violence, not drugs, not overdoses, not cancer, not the flu, not the coronavirus. is the fucking police, man. They're the number one cause of young men in the United States of death. That's insane.
Yo,
So no
Very
virus,
insane.
no disease, no drugs is bigger death toll wise than for young men in America than the police. That's insane. Can you believe that shit? The cops are a bigger risk for a young man who's black or Latino of dying than a disease,
Yeah.
than a
That-
plague, than
that's
a pandemic,
two interesting
than
things.
anything. That's insane.
that should speak a lot right there.
Back on
Yeah.
That says a lot.
and have you seen the two recent um viral videos online? The first one was when those cops burst into that couple's house unannounced, and he ended up shooting at the cop, thinking it was an intruder, and then they shot back, killed his girlfriend, shot her like I think it was ridiculous amount of times. She ended up dying, and they ended up charging him for attempted murder on the cop.
That's insane.
And then went in without a warrant.
No, they had like a silent warrant. So that means that they can go if they have like enough probable cause that you're hiding drugs in the system and like very confident that you have it in your crib and that's a drug house, then certain states you can get a no knock law. So they can literally just burst into your house and not
Okay, well, probably meant to not. Okay.
police officers. So they did that, and they ended up the guy thinking as an intruder shot the cops, not knowing they were police officers, and then they ended up shooting back. And you know, once you shoot at a cop, they're not just shooting one time.
Yeah, they're gonna, yeah.
They're gonna empty the clip and they're gonna reload it, and then empty out that clip. And they ended up shooting her and a ridiculous amount of times, and he ended up getting attempted murder charges on a cop.
And did they find drugs in his home?
Nope,
Look at
nothing.
that.
That's insane, man.
Wow.
Yo, man.
But just because they were saying that it was justified because who their original target was, they felt like he was using that house as a stash house, as a place
Yo.
to live and all that stuff.
Yo, check this shit out. The estimated, this is an actual real statistic. This is in Britannica. The estimated cost of police brutality incidents in the United States per 2-year period is 1.8 billion.
1.8 billion, you said?
Yep, for every 2 years.
And then you
For
guys,
every 2
poli-
years.
they're not gonna
police
believe this
brutality.
fucking video.
And
but
it says and some
That's
of them have,
$900 million a year. Then, in other words.
yeah, like it's and some have hit the $1 billion mark. In some years, it's hit the $1 billion mark, and like for 1 year instead of 2. You know what I mean?
so
That's
there's
insane.
a viral video
Wow.
out there, right, about this EMT worker, this black EMT worker in Los Angeles.
Oh yeah, the lady, right?
You heard about it, right? That this white lady seizure. This black EMT worker doing his job had to restrain the lady inside the ambulance, protecting her from hurting herself. He ended up getting arrested by cops because they felt like he was physically assaulting the woman. And this is in an ambulance.
It's a person who
He is an
actually EMT employee. Yeah. Wow.
But because the woman was white, he was black, he got charged for assaulting the woman because he restrained her in the back of an ambulance
Wow.
as an EMT worker
Oh
on
my god.
duty in the process of it happening.
Oh, man. So
That should just
That's
made me
insane.
like, are you
Yeah.
serious?
Racism is live and well, man.
yeah, man. Look
Are
at
you
it.
Live and well.
It's crazy. Like you guys want to hear a fun
common
fact, a fun statistic? Check this out. Police officers are indicted in fewer than 1% of the killings of the civilians that they kill. So 1%. So they're indicted fewer than 1% country-wise, right?
So 95% are able to not
Get away.
convicted.
Exactly.
Yeah, because if you
So that's what I mean. So then,
if fear for your life,
yeah. So
that's an automatic get out of jail free card.
So on average in the United States, a police officer takes the life of a citizen every 7 hours. Fucking every 7
What?
hours, a cop is killing somebody out there. 52% of the police officers report that it is not unusual for a law enforcement official to turn a blind eye to improper conduct of other officers. So that means that they back each other up in that sense. Like, oh shit, I ain't see that shit. I ain't see you. I ain't see you plant that half a brick in that nigga's car. You know what I'm saying? 61% of the police officers state that they do not always report serious abuse that has been directly observed by fellow officers. So that means that they back each other up. So
they back each other up. That's evident. That's evident. That's something that.
Yep.
Yeah.
43% of police officers agree with this sentiment. Following the rules is not compatible with the need to get the job done. So them motherfuckers get taught that shit. Like, yo, you gotta get the job done. Do whatever the fuck you need to do. You know what I mean? That's basically what that means, right? 43% of police officers agree with this sentiment. Always following the rules is not compatible with the need to get the job done. What does that mean, guys? What does that mean? What is your assessment of that? That last statistic.
Say it again, so I can get a better understanding.
43% of police officers agree that always following the rules is not compatible with the need to get their job done.
So not following protocol, pretty much.
Yeah, it's not compatible with them getting the fucking case solved or.
So they do whatever they can to, you know what I'm saying,
to get their agenda pushed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See, that just shows.
Yeah.
So that means that they could possibly plant things in order to make that case go.
Yes.
And get that person. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, this is in the follow-up statistic right after that one, guys. This is gonna blow your mind. 84% of police officers have stated in a recent survey that they have directly witnessed a fellow officer using more force than was necessary.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a statistic from the United States Department of Justice. So this is a federal statistic.
And you know what I say that we see that in videos. When we see these videos with these police officers using excessive force, you can see the other police officers looking at them like, yo, what are you doing? Like, you taking this too far. You know what I'm saying? So I could definitely 84%. I think it would be higher, but yeah, man, that's just true.
Yeah, man. And then most of them turn a blind eye. They're like, oh shit, I'm not.
They look the other way. You know what I mean? Because more than likely, the person who's doing the excessive force is a higher up. So they're obviously not gonna say nothing to someone who's higher up to them. You know what I'm saying? So I see that, but still, though, what's done, what's wrong is wrong. You know what I'm saying? You got to step in and say, like, yo, you got to chill out. Like, you taking this a little bit too far.
Yo, take this shit. Yo, African Americans and Latinos are 5 times likely to die in a police killing, in a police attack, than a Caucasian person. 5 times likely. So that means, like, 5 times likely. So, and the reason there's a reason for that. Reason historically we haven't had a good relationship with them. That's number one, because because of the whole racism thing. Then after we supposedly got our rights, they still racially profiled us. And then thirdly, most cops are white, so it's like a race war type shit. You know what I mean? In that sense.
And I mean, and they so conditioned though, because again, these officers would say, "I'm not racist. I have black friends." But it's so ingrained in their brain historically, because everything they've been through, they experience and know the history of this country, how it was built. It's just like, you know what I mean? They just do it subconsciously. They just like, you know what I mean? They look at this person and they already have a judgment about it.
Yeah, that sucks. That sucks that it's like that.
And it's a sense of superiority that I felt from even people who are, you know, they look, even though they see me, they look down. You know, they feel like they're superior, and it's like,
definitely
superior than me. We're the same level.
Absolutely. I agree, man. It's just crazy though.
And it's just crazy. This is the final statistic I'm gonna give, man, because if I keep on going on the list, I'm just gonna become.
I know it's a lot.
I'm gonna keep on going. I'm gonna become more anti-cop.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
And you know what? I got a lot of good friends who are cops, and I'm sorry because there are a lot of good cops out there, man, and it's
absolutely
that the guys who actually wake up every day to do their job and they do the job effectively. The bad ones definitely, man.
I had a friend who actually quit the force. One of my boys, he quit the force. He said he couldn't put up with the corruption no more. He said he left the police department. He couldn't take it no more.
That's insane. Because listen, 1 in 4 people who are killed by law enforcement officials in the United States are unarmed.
So 25% of the people that are killed are unarmed by a police officer.
Yeah,
25%.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
That's, yeah. See, again, these are numbers that are, I mean, again, these are statistics that should speak volumes. And this is why this is a serious thing. This is a serious cause that we have to really take this and really, something has to really change, because again, I mean, it really stems with the economic inequality, with these people that are definitely an easy target, because again, they're so vulnerable. Again, when you see someone that, has been through so much in their life of being oppressed, being so deprived from the basic necessities, and they see someone with a shield, badge, with a gun, they feel intimidated, because they're sick of it already. And they become an easy target. And this is why we see so much brutality, man, to be honest with you. So it's just very unfortunate, man. Very unfortunate, man.
Yeah,
I
so,
don't know, man.
and then finally, but not least, 70% of police brutality in the United States is the victims are African Americans.
75%.
69%.
Mind you, how much percent they make up in a population? 16%?
Insane.
Am I wrong or not? I mean, I want to make sure we get the facts right. I don't want to put some numbers out there that it's not, factual. But I believe the percentage of African Americans in the United States is about 15 to 16%. But you just said 75% of them?
69%.
69%. Okay, let me get it right.
So in all police brutality cases,
wow,
69% of police brutality cases are people of African American descent.
Look at that.
Right. The other percentage, see here, the 28% are Latinos, and then 2% are white.
2% are whites? No way. And what's the source from the source, though? We got to make sure our listeners know. What's that from? The source?
Here, this is from the Britannica.org.
So Britannica.org. Okay. All right.
Britannica.org. So this is a legitimate, credible source. This is actually a credible source to actually hold statistics for a lot of things in the world, any subject or Olympic sports, whatever.
That speaks so much volumes, because you're talking about 69% of African Americans. They only make about 16% of the United States population. And then you just said 2% are only whites, and they make up 60% or even more of the United States population. Wow.
Why is that? Because most cops are white, and they get away. It's
history, man. Historical background. The historical background, man. Again, man. How this all started.
Even if you're a poor white person, you get pulled over by a white cop, they treat you nicer. I'm telling you, they do. I've seen.
We always will have white privilege, though. That's one thing. They will always have an upper hand, regardless of what economic position you are as a person of color. I do want to call it, because again, the white privilege is something it's real. You know what I'm saying? As much as some other white people want to be in denial about it, which is so amusing to me. I just laugh it. I just laugh it off. I'm like, oh, I can't believe they actually believe this. But it's really real. White privilege is a real thing.
See, like you can be you can have a colleague of yours, right, at work, who has the same position as you. You guys have the same superiority, right? You guys could be in the same level of management, right? Make the same amount of money. And there's certain perks that he gets that you don't. Just because he's white.
Yeah. It's white, yeah. Absolutely.
He gets invited to to play golf on the weekends with the boss, and you don't. Shit like that. Like little sneaky shit. Like
get invited like you just said right now. Yeah.
Yeah, like you got invited to the boss's vineyard in Connecticut. And then you find out a year later, what the fuck? Why didn't I get invited to the vineyard? I got the same status.
Absolutely.
I thought I was cool with the boss too. Well, guess what? You're not white like him. That's why you're not going. And
that's
plus,
true.
I didn't know black people drink wine or Latinos. That's their thing. You guys drink wine, really? Yeah, that's like that's so crazy the way that they make like stupid jokes about.
This is dumb. Just dumb and ignorant. Dumb and ignorant. And it's crazy because they'll say, "Oh yeah, I love black people," but the moment their daughter brings a black person into their home, "Oh, is this my boyfriend?" Huh. You can only imagine that how their face gonna look like.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not gonna get into the whole thing of like being like extra like crazy with the racism thing because I mean, they are um they are Caucasian people who are not racist, but um um and the racist ones are dying off slowly but surely. In the next maybe 20 years, I say we'll get a little bit better because they do have a lot of biracial kids coming out now, and people are integrating,
More and
getting
more.
more and more. But man, it still exists out there, and it's very prevalent in our
No,
society, bro.
no, racism is live and well still, bro. Live and well.
Yeah.
I mean, the only difference is that before we really see it, but now it's being more revealed because now we have cell phones, we have cameras, we're able to actually videotape this and actually show proof of what goes on because it's been going on since 400 years ago. You know what I'm saying? When the idea of race was first developed by the Europeans. So, you know, it's just being more revealed now.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
I mean, just look at the stories, man. They come out all the time. Like, last year there was a statistic. I don't have the actual document right now because I have to look it up. But last year alone, there was like in New York State, there was 10 people released from prison for a wrongful conviction from the same from the same officer.
Same officers, man.
They
There's
did
no discipline from the
15,
officer.
15, 18, and 20 years. That was like the how much time those 10 people did, like from 15 to 20 years. Because that same cop, he would make it his duty to plant evidence, and he was cool with the district attorney. And
Did that cop get his job?
He kept his job. He retired. He's retired. He's receiving a pension.
Now imagine if you would have done that for your job or anybody else aside from police officer.
Yeah.
You still be employed. Let's just keep it real.
You wouldn't,
but still be employed.
He's not employed anymore because by the time these guys came out of jail, he was already retired.
Well, yeah, the year's probably in. That's probably what it was.
Yeah, but so the city's paying his retirement pension.
Yeah.
And cops, when they get 80% of their salary, I believe, when they retire. Depending how many years, if you was there for the max time, you're getting 80% of your salary or 75%, something like that. It's high. So if you were making 100K on retirement, you're gonna make 75K easily, just at home chilling, and you're allowed to get a second job. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, man. So who ends up paying the pension? We do, the taxpayers. And guess what? Those guys coming out of jail, they want to put in a civil suit now. Who's paying that? We are.
Yeah,
the taxpayers. So we end up losing with police brutality. So in that case, we need to get our political leaders a little bit more involved in assessing the psychic or having better training for police officers once they're on the force.
Yes, once they're on the force, like you said, like to keep reinforcing that where they're assessed every year, which is a great idea. Yeah. And also really the socioeconomic system though. I mean, and though, we have to really understand it really stands with classism. Classism is the father of racism. You know what I mean? I can't stretch it no more. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, you guys want to do a final thought? I mean, great episode though, man.
Yeah, great episode. We had a lot of facts and a lot of like stuff to back it up with, man. And you know, I'm gonna start it off. My final thought is, you know what I mean, like knowing the facts and knowing the history. If you are of an ethnic group that's been typically historically attacked by police officers, just understand that. And if you ever have an encounter with a law enforcement officer, just be cordial, be positive. Don't do anything that's gonna entice them to overly use their excessive force, because sometimes they do come at you with excessive force from the beginning without you even having an idea of what's going on. But just be mindful that there is a history, and there might be a chance just because you're a certain color or just because you belong to a certain ethnic group that you might be looked at different. Just be mindful of that and just act cordial. Know your law, first of all. Know what they can do and what they cannot do, and just be very careful when dealing with an officer. Not all of them are bad, but statistically, most of them are bad. So just take that into consideration and just be mindful. Just know that, you know, the odds are against you. And as long as you know your rights, you're a little bit in control of the situation, but also don't give that person, that police officer, a chance to use his license to kill, his badge to impose excessive force on you. Don't give him the opportunity. That would be my final thought.
Wow, no, that's
Yeah.
deep, man. That's deep. That's very true. Very true, man. Everything you just said right there is very true. Gotta be very mindful and absolutely know your rights, though. That's one thing that we're not really educated to really understand our rights. You know what I'm saying? We could talk about all about sports and throughout all these statistics about certain things that has no relevance into our survival because your Bill of Rights is a survival tool. So it's very important to really understand your Bill of Rights, your rights as an American citizen. So that's very true, man. Chris Ryder, you want to end it or you want me to go?
Is that your final thought, Joe, or you want to continue?
No, no. I mean, you know what I'm saying. I was just picking back off of what Nell was saying. I mean, I can say my final thought. It's very short and simple. I mean, unless you want to go first.
I'll end it off.
We ended up all right. So my final thought, pretty much what I just stated earlier. I mean, until economic inequality, and understand that it's all about the economic inequality, and not until really address that, it's never going to stop. You know what I'm saying? And when it comes to racism, bigotry, xenophobia, those are things that stems with classism. So we're always going to see social injustice on many levels, and it will continue as a systemic result if we don't change the economic inequality in this country. And that's my final thought.
I think it all stems from the so-called white privilege. And you're right, Jay, on what you were saying, but white privilege is just basically white people looking out for white people. That's basically what it is. So as blacks and Latinos, we have to start looking out for one another in those instances instead of treating each other as if we are the enemy as well.
Yeah.
If we create that sense of unity within each other, we can create our own privilege. If you see another black or Latino lacking, you should help them out. Let me help you out. And then we shouldn't feel because this person is being nice that we should take advantage of them. Because that's one of the big things that we have an issue in our culture is that if I'm doing good for somebody else, they're gonna take advantage of me and stab me in the back. And it's an opportunist nature that's prevented us from creating our own sense of privilege within each other. Um, Also, I feel like energy is a big part of a lot of things. And I've seen a lot of videos where African Americans have been on the verge of losing their life, but because they remained calm, even when they had a gun pointed in their face, they were able to save their own lives. So I feel like, it's the toughest situation because a cop can have the excuse saying, I'm in fear for my life, but you're supposed to remain calm with a gun in your face. How's that possible? How are you going to remain calm when you have a cop punch you in your face or trying to literally kill you? But they can fear for their life. And until they're held accountable for their actions, which within the last couple years, you're starting to see cops become more and more held accountable for their actions. Cops are being indicted. That lady who killed that dude in Dallas, even though she got 10 years, you got to think of it as a start. Racism, civil rights movement was only 50 years ago, somehow. So these people are still alive.
They're still alive.
So it's all and two, it's about energy. It's about energy. It's about trying to fix the situation at that moment and trying to be better people within ourselves. And if we can recognize that, then we can slowly become a better society. But it takes time. I've said this on the podcast numerous times. It takes time. It takes time.
Mm.
You can't fix hundreds of years of segregation in a matter of decades.
You're right.
You
You're right.
can't
And
you can't break a mentality that's been there forever. Because they still think of us as free slaves. You know, and I know deep down inside they're like, I can't believe this fucking dude's talking to me like that. My ancestors made sure that they were hung on trees, that type of shit. And I know that they think like that. Some, not all of them, but
Right,
some.
right.
And I think that until we change that, you know, narrative to where Martin Luther King said it the best: be judged by the content of your character, not by the color of your skin. And I feel like in my lifetime, I've seen some really, really good white dudes that are the best. I've seen some really, really bad white dudes. I've seen some black dudes that are the best. Seen some really, really crappy ones. I've seen some really, and it goes through all races. So until we can get to that opportunity, into that position where you're judged by the character, and you being a piece of shit is really who you are, and it's not judged by your character, it's going to be a long road ahead. But I feel like it takes time. It takes time and it takes energy.
I agree.
That's it.
Definitely. It's going to be a process.
Yeah, you froze right there. You
It's
said
gonna
it takes
happen.
time. Fucking.
Oh, because there's a camera.
I think the Matrix, was trying to stop you from spreading your message there, brother.
No, it's because like the podcast got started a little late, so I can't really be next to my Wi-Fi service. So.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. You got a curfew. You got to wake up early.
Well, I got a 9-month-old son.
You got to wake up early to slaughter the meat tomorrow.
I have a 9-month-old.
Oh man, fellas, man, great episode. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, go ahead. You wanna throw
before you fall asleep? Before you fall asleep, Christopher, at night, Chris Ryder, do you contemplate on the meat you're gonna slaughter the next day? Like, I got $100, I got 10 pounds of pork chops. I gotta do.
Being that you said that I'm the king of rhetorical questions, what do you think?
I think so. I think you go to sleep just thinking of like pieces of lamb chops just jumping over fences and shit.
Can I ask you a question though?
You have some people count to 10. They're like 100 sheep jumping over a fence.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, pork chops jumping over a fence. So
oh my god!
Bacon when you're sleeping?
Huh?
Nice crispy long strips of bacon, pork chops. So your new name, Nelson, I'm gonna call you Pork Chop from now on.
Yeah, man. So yeah, man.
Let's sign off though, man. Sign off, man. Did that the Roundtable podcast.
Yeah, that's great.
Chris Ryder. The t-shirt meets, man. I can't believe you actually wore that shirt.
There you go, man. He's embracing the whole butcher lifestyle because he you can't be in denial.
He's dedicated. He's dedicated, bro. He's dedicated.
Video to Nelson of me doing the big dog.
And being in denial.
and I'm gonna have him specifically hear the sound of bones snapping.
Yeah.
Knife between the joints, because I tell everybody all the time when they want to talk their nonsense, said I could take your elbow off without using a handsaw. It's very easy, and I'm gonna show them why. I'm gonna make sure that snapping sound.
Man,
it's an amazing sound.
It's all about embracing who you really are, bro. And instead of being in denial, like you gotta embrace the fact that you're a fucking psychopath. You're a killer.
You know how
like seeing blood and
like
everywhere. Little bit.
Bones is an amazing sound, bro.
How you love? Like it seems like as if you want to do that to someone.
That's what I'm saying. He's passionate. He's passionate about it, but he's in denial. So I try to help him. I try to help him embrace it.
I wake up one day without an elbow. You never know.
But like the other day, like I was, like I put up a video of me, like chopping up some stuff that I was gonna make to eat. He said, "Oh, I gotta teach you a thing or two about using a knife." I'm like, "Listen, bro." I didn't want to like really comment hard on him because there's other people watching. But like, hey, listen, man, I'm not into that whole culinary arts fancy cutting.
Vegetables all wrong, Bobby. It was terrible.
No, I wasn't cutting it as smooth as a killer, but
but that's not even a killer. That's a culinary art, baby.
That's just a culinary art. I'm not a chef. I'm a home tall chef. So
and how to
they're making fancy meats with like with little cauliflowers on them. Like I'm making actual real food.
All in the motion of the wrist, Nelson. It's all in the motion of the wrist.
Yeah. Oh my God.
All right, man. So then at the Roundtable podcast, man. We'll be back next week. Man, shout out to Bodega the DJ. He couldn't be here again. I don't know what's going on. Maybe he's quarantined out. Maybe he's isolated. He's probably hiding under his bathtub or something. I'm not sure. Like those old school bathtubs. They had like the little opening in the bottom. The bathtubs nowadays they're like cemented to the ground, but back in the days when they had like that opening in the bottom. You get down there, that shit was cold as fuck. That shit was always cold as fuck down there, huh?
That's crazy, man.
You could get there any time of the day. That shit was cold as fuck. In the summer, when it was hot, you get under that bathtub, it was cold as fuck.
Yeah, that's true.
It's probably there, man. Bodega, if you're under
shout out Bodega, though. Shout out Bodega, man.
Bodega, if you're under there, man, send us a text, man. We'll go help you out, brother.
Oh my God, man. So yeah, man. Next week though, man. We back to that
We're
About
gonna
Show
end it up with
podcast.
some tunes right here real quick. And yeah, man. You already know I'm gonna be back in the game next week.